Welcome back to Walking New Paths, where we learn and journey with people forging their way through life with faith and courage. In this episode, Lydia speaks to the father and Auckland politician, Efeso Collins. Before listening to this episode, we take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of each of the lands on which we are currently placed as we work, learn, and live. We recognise their enduring connection to country, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We recognise that this land was never ceded, and we look forward to, in this moment, partaking in their ancient tradition of sharing stories. Over to you, Lydia.
Welcome to our speaker series for our Walking New Paths. Today I have with me an esteemed friend and colleague and mentor by the name of Efeso Collins. So welcome. It's great to be able to see you and be with you today.
It's alofa, Lydia, and really grateful for the opportunity. Thanks for having me. Sorry we can't be there in person, but glad you can make it here into my living room, and you can see the back at the kitchen here in South Auckland.
Yes, and it's great to see some life-giving fruit there in the back. Awesome. So Efeso, we know that you are definitely a mentor of mine. We met back in the days at University of Auckland, but we would love to hear more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, cool. So I'm an Auckland councillor at the moment. Auckland is a super city council. So for those people who don't come from Auckland, we're about 1.6 million people, and there are 21 of us on the governing body or the council of Auckland Council, and I'm one of the 21. I represent an area called Manukau, and Manukau is in the south of Auckland. It's the poorest area. It's a really diverse area, and my job is to represent the needs, aspirations, and hopes of our community. All up, I represent around 180,000 people, and I share the role with another councillor. I'm married. I married a beautiful Samoan woman who you know, Lydia. We were all at university together. Her name is Fia, and we've got two daughters, Kapiriela and Asalemo. And we live at the moment in Otahuhu in South Auckland. So we're really blessed to have our little apartment here, because anyone who's watching, whether you're based in Sydney or in Auckland, you've probably got really similar housing challenges, and we're blessed to live here in South Auckland. We're Samoan, and only people who are Samoan will go to heaven, is what I've been told to believe. So I hope that's a little bit about us that people might be interested in.
That's great. That's great. It's great to know that St. John Baptist de la Salle was also Samoan then.
Yeah, so yeah, and Pope Francis got a bit of Samoan blood too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love it. I love it. We've got a few rapid fire questions for you just to get to know you a little bit more. So are you ready for them?
Sweet, all good.
Okay. So, question 1. What is your favorite song at the moment?
Oh, you've got me thinking now. It's that Bruno Mars one. Leave the door open. Sorry.
Okay. Preference, one or the other, movies or books?
Movies.
Macca's or KFC?
KFC.
I feel I know the answer to this next one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Waikato Chiefs or Auckland Blues?
Chiefs hard.
Didn't you just finish saying that you are proud Aucklander and work for the Auckland Council?
Just to explain that, the Chiefs region picks up Manukau. So all of the county's Manukau boys who go to the Chiefs, they live in my area. So I just needed to clarify that, because there'll be some jealous Auckland Blues. But the Blues played pretty well, and they won the final. And there were no Aussie teams in the final. I just thought I should throw that in there too.
Very valid observation, very valid. Okay, so another sporting question. Steph Curry or LeBron James?
Oh, Steph Curry.
Galo or fa'i?
Galo, with lots of pepe on it.
Can you explain what galo and pepe is for our watchers?
So galo's like potatoes or kumara, and it's a staple part of a Samoan diet. And the pepe is the coconut cream that you put on top, and you have a little bit of onion. You can boil it so it's nice and hot, which is how I like it as well.
Awesome. I also hear pepe is directly related to diabetes.
Oh, no, that's research we haven't covered here in New Zealand. I don't know what you're talking about.
Awesome. Okay, so what's a TV show you can't get sick of?
At the moment, probably Suits. I know it's a rehash, but I really enjoy the lawyers.
Nice. I recommend watching the Korean version.
Oh, I don't speak Korean though.
Subtitles.
Oh, that probably makes sense.
Which character from that show of Suits best describes you and why?
I don't know. It's the guy with the bald head. I'm not sure what his name is, but he's the one that's always he's a bit dramatic, but on the edgy side. And he's not like a main partner at the moment. He goes on to become one. I've got to remember his name, but he's the guy that I think reminds me of me. But edgy on the side, but weird, but crazy. Yeah, that's my kind of person.
Hey, that's an awesome kind of person. Lucky last is, what is your spirit animal?
Oh, what's a spirit animal? I was thinking of a tiger. Is that a spirit animal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
So
yeah.
So an animal that you think best represents you, and where you are in your life right now.
Oh, actually, it should be a lion. The reason I was thinking of a tiger lion was because you know how they sleep for 90% of the day and then they're really active for 10%. I kind of feel like that's me sometimes, as I need good sleep. I need lots of sleep so that I can handle it when I go to the gym for my 30 minutes of press play.
Yes, your half hour of power.
Yep.
Awesome. So, Efeso, as you know, you were one of the first people I thought about when we talked about walking new paths. And so, knowing that was the topic or the theme for the speaker series, what first came to mind for you?
I started to think about how when I go for a walk, I walk the same walk every time. And I don't know if there are people like me in the world, but I like the idea that I know exactly where I'm going. I know how long it's going to take. And when we were in lockdown here in Auckland, I would walk the same path every time, just in case I slipped down the hill and no one thought of me and forgot me. And it would be days before my wife realized that I wasn't home, which is probably a dream come true for her. So walking the new paths was like, well, what else can we try? What's the new terrain that I want to walk? And given that at the time, we've been through a lockdown, I know that people in Australia are going through lockdowns too. What does a new path look like, in the sense that what are the new ideas or strategies that we have to try new things? And so it kind of connected to the theme that I was going to talk about, which was flip the script, is how do we change the narrative, especially around young people? And I think young people for me, young people are full of exuberance, they're cool, they're clever. I've just recently signed up to TikTok. I've given in, this 100-year-old man is finally on TikTok. And I watch TikTok and I'm amazed at the talent that I see. And in the realm that I work in, which is in politics, young people are often looked at as being problems. They're the ones that create all sorts of issues in society. And yet when I go to spaces like TikTok or Twitter, I'm on Facebook, when I go into high schools and churches and youth groups, I see young people really leading the way and creating new spaces. And so for me, that's what it means to walk new paths, to flip the script, to tell a new story, one that's inclusive, one where young people feel like we're determining our future. And old people like me looking on sometimes get a little bit scared because young people are so fresh with their ideas. As I was saying, they're exuberant, they're exciting. And I think young people today are demanding an honesty and integrity about society that we haven't seen in a long time. And so I love young people, and that's what came to mind. And I was thinking of you too, Liz, when you asked me. I thought, well, we all studied together here in Auckland, and you've been over in Australia now for a while. And I think that's part of a new path. Yeah, often for Pacific families, we came from Samoa, into New Zealand, and we thought that would be our last stop. And then people like you have made the journey just a little bit wider. You've gone on to Australia. I know that many of our families go and teach in Korea or Japan. And my own family are based in Kalgoorlie, of all places. And I've heard of it on TV, but I've never been there myself. I've certainly been to Logan and places like Mount Druitt and stuff, because that's where our family are now. So I think that's what it means to walk new paths, try new things, get to understand new societies, new ideas, and see how we can incorporate a part of our culture into those new places.
So, Efeso, thank you for sharing with me your thoughts on what it means to you and what came to mind when we asked you about this concept of walking new paths. as someone who knows you personally, and someone who's cheered you on in all the different pursuits that you've had in life, are you able to talk to me about what has helped you get onto those new paths, and in terms of going from education to politics?
But there are a number of things I'm thinking about, but one of them has been I've got good friends around me. And you know the people who we've all studied with. You know, Fia started off as a good friend, then I chased her, you know, people like that. And I've had really strong friends in my life who've encouraged me. And the good thing about having good, strong friends is they don't just tell you when you're doing well, they take you aside when things aren't going so well, and they encourage you in that regard too. And I think that's what has been really helpful for me is people know my heart, they know the things that I'm really keen on. We share our aspirations together. We hang out lots. We eat far too much. You were joking about diabetes. Probably all my friends have a form of type 2, or we're heading in that direction at the moment. But all of that stuff creates a space where we can dream and aspire and cheer one another on. And I think that's really important. I've also been a bit daring, and that's my style or that's probably my personality, is I like to push the envelope just a little bit. And there are some people who like things really safe and structured. I'm the type of person that really likes unstructured. I like chaos. I warm to chaos. I walk towards confrontation, because I think those are the kinds of tensions, especially in politics, that I've learned to balance and to manage. And when people appreciate the different strengths that we all bring to something, then that's really useful, because we realize we're a team. There are quiet people in a team. There are those people who love to sing. There are those who are real thinkers and writers. And then there are people like me who like to kind of encourage or facilitate strong, hard, honest discussions. And I think that's what I've realized about myself. I guess just finally, Lydia, I'm a lot older now. When we were all at university, we were all cool and 18, 19, 20. Well, I'm pushing 107 now, and I realize that you don't have forever to achieve all the things that are really valuable to me. I've got 2 young daughters, and I want the best for them. The truth of the matter is that my girls are girls first and foremost. And if you look at a lot of the data in New Zealand, at least, that means that they're going to be paid less than men. So they start behind the 8 ball in a way. But my girls are also brown, and the data also shows us that brown girls, Pacific females, start behind white females. And I think it's really important that as parents, Fia and I do everything we can to facilitate the best outcomes for my girls. So I think a lot of those things, they kind of culminate into that's what's good to have around you, but you still got to have a big dream. And my big dream isn't for me anymore. My big dream is for my daughters, so that they will be part of a world that's fair and just and honest, and is going to treat them really well. So yeah, those are some of the things that drive me, but some of the good tools that I've had around me to support where I am today.
Thanks for that, Fess. Definitely, that was heartfelt, and I really appreciate your honesty and not mincing words and those things. So next question. Efeso, that sounds like something that all young people can aspire to, is to be able to walk these new paths for themselves and work towards being able to find and forge new paths for the generation that comes after them. So I guess the next question I have in terms of finding more out about that is acknowledging that there are paths for people that they don't choose for themselves, and keeping that in mind. Do you have any advice for them and how to navigate, I guess, stereotypes, or whether it be other things that are placed on them that they have no control over? What's your message of hope for them?
Yeah, look, I think the Lasallian group that you're a part of is a key institution or space where young people can feel safe to test ideas, to test what they're thinking. I've got it. I don't know if you can see the screen that I've got on at the moment, but it's of a bird, and in Samoan we say e lele le toloa e ma au I le vai. And what that means is like the duck or the bird will fly, and often it goes way far away, but it's a vision or its mind is always cast to what it knows, to the identity that it knows. I think what we've got to do is allow young people to explore. Where young people are kind of crazy as well. And I mean that in the most encouraging way. You're daring, you're bold, and it's important that you try to explore things, that you test the waters and things that you like. There's going to be some challenges, and I've touched on the challenge of perhaps gender and race that's very real to us here in New Zealand, and it'll be real to many of the young people and the groups that are watching at the moment. I think some of the things that we really need to think about is, how does that affect me? What's my approach to those challenges? Share it with your best friend. Think of someone who's close to you, maybe someone who's mentoring you at the moment, and ask them, well, what were some of the challenges that you faced? Here are some of the challenges that I'm feeling at the moment. And how do we navigate those challenges and work through them? Because I think there's fun ways and real ways and hard ways to deal with all of them. And I'm not saying that they should be one or the other. I'm saying that all of those ways are going to be brought together in the way you work through those challenges. But I would encourage you, find people that you trust, people that aren't going to take your challenges and minimize them and make you feel stink about them, but are going to hold them with respect and dignity and then walk with you. I know that for many of our people, Pacific people, our parents are a key place where we can soundboard to. So if you've got parents who kind of get it, I don't know if people had parents like mine, but my parents wanted a lawyer or a doctor, and I'm neither. So sometimes I live with the regret that I didn't fulfill my parents' dreams. But they understand as the success is shared, they'll see that it wasn't just their dream; there was a wider dream, and that can be a personal barrier as well. So get your mentor on side. If you've got parents who are willing to listen, talk them through it as well. If you've got a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever, then there's someone you can rely on too. And I was saying earlier, the Last Alien Group's a good place to do it, but make sure that they're people you trust, and you're going to have to build trust, recognizing who you are, what you want to be, the aspirations and the desires that you have. But those things are really special. They're special to you because you're unique, you're an individual, and it's important that you've got people around you who'll encourage you in those ways. So I think that's probably what's helped me. Just on that too, I've had good mentors in my life, and all of them are older men. And whilst I talk a whole lot about race, a couple of the men who've mentored me are older Palangi men, but they accept that I'm a little bit on the nutty side. They accept that my aspirations are a bit different, but they're willing to walk with me, to hear me out. They shout me coffee and cake and a feed when we hang out. And they pray for me as well. I think prayer is really important too, that you can stop and pause and still your heart for a minute and just kind of reset and really believe in what you're doing. I hope that's been useful, Liz.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for incorporating the faith part into it. As while we definitely are an inclusive group of people, we always look to the founder in terms of the example that he said of drawing always close to Christ and to God to guide us in all that we do. So it's really interesting that you brought up mentoring and being able to acknowledge that there are paths that your parents might set out for you that you might have lifelong guilt about not being able to follow, but that doesn't change your level of success of where you are. So that it reminded me a lot of our own founder, St. John Baptist de La Salle, in terms of he had his path set out for him to become quite a prominent person of faith in the Catholic Church, but he, just like we do today, we don't truly acknowledge the value of someone until after they've left. And so I'm confident that if De La Salle were to look down now and see the amount of people who work in his charism and work and follow his ways now is really awesome. I do want to ask, you've talked a lot about people who've helped and a few processes. What keeps you motivated or driven and or focused as you keep walking these new paths in your life?
I think what's really key is understanding my priorities now. So as you get older, you start to realize that you're not alive forever. So I want to be clear on the things that I'm going to exchange my time for and my life for. So having clear priorities on the kind of change that I want to affect. I'm in politics at the moment. I won't be in politics forever. But what are the things that I can do using this platform and this office to push new thinking, new ideas, and some change? So that's one thing. I've talked a little bit about my girls already, but they're a major source of motivation for me. So I just touch on them briefly again. It's understanding that beyond me, they are still going to be alive. And I want to raise daughters who are strong, who are safe in who they are, who aren't just going to throw themselves out into the world and hope that something works out. I want them to be really deliberate and intentional about life. And that's going to come because we've built a strong foundation at home. And so for us, faith's really important. I grew up Assemblies of God. I was Pentecostal, and my wife is Catholic. And when I met Fia, the different styles of worship were really interesting to me because I come from a background where, you're clapping, you've got bands going in the background, to a style of worship that's very reflective and a little bit slower. And I've really enjoyed that. And in our home, we've created a space where prayer and faith and acknowledgement of God is really important. So that motivates me too, that mine outside of Fia and I being involved in our girls' lives, are they going to be able to stand strong? Have we helped them navigate faith and God in such a way where they can rely on God, where they're happy to pray, where they can be strong in who they are? I think my final motivation is that I'm all about a just and fair society, and I'm still challenged on whether I believe we have one at the moment. I look at what's going on here in Auckland. If you look at how Auckland is set out, you get a whole lot of the poorer people living in my area, and you get a whole lot of the wealthier people living in other areas. I think we've got to be really careful in Auckland, at least, or New Zealand, that we don't segregate on the basis of our income or the decile of our school or our health outcomes. And those are really important issues for me. And as long as I'm getting up every day thinking I can make a little bit of a dent on those particular issues, then that's going to keep me motivated to work hard, to be a strong and bold voice for the people that I represent. So there's a few factors in our motivation, but I see a whole team of people coming together who've got similar hearts, similar visions, and all of us are trying to affect that type of change in the different roles that we're involved in.
I feel like you're St. John Baptist de la Salle reincarnated. Don't worry, I'll cut that out.
I hope so.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent. Awesome. So, Efeso, you touched on a few of the things that are important to you and are challenges for a lot of people in Auckland and shared experiences by other parts of our district and ANZ, PPNG. And there are other things that continue to challenge the way that we think and the way that we operate. And that's these things called these shared experiences that you've got up here on the screen. What are your thoughts on how we can feel personally connected as opposed to just being part of a movement? How do we individually connect to a movement where there are a lot of people where you can get lost in it?
Yeah. Look, I think it's important that we understand that there's a whole lot of things happening across the world, across Australia and New Zealand and in the Pacific at the moment that are massive. And I put that screen up in front of you that people can see at the moment because I think that shows just how big the issues are, whether it's climate change and students who are marching against climate change. There's homelessness, major homelessness in most OECD countries. Auckland, where I live, has more than, I think, close to 60% of all the homeless people live in the city that I represent. And then I put up the Black Lives Matter shot because we're now understanding that race has had a real impact on our society. So there's some massive global movements happening at the moment. And we've got to find our place in the world where we can affect some change. And I think my encouragement would be to, if you're part of the Lassallean group at the moment, that movement, then talk to each other about what you might do well. One of the things we have here in Otahu, just across the road from where I live, is St. Vinny de Paul's, and we've got a whole youth group involved with them, and they have been amazing, especially over the COVID period, but long before that they were amazing. They're the ones who are preparing and care packages and food packages for people who've been really struggling since we've had lockdown last year. We've had a number of people who've lost jobs. So things like that are really important in the community. They're the ones who are going up to people's houses and they're all masked up and everything, and some of them wearing those blue things that the doctors and nurses wear. And they're standing at people's gates and they're calling out, because there's during lockdowns you have to keep distance. But they're calling out to people's gates to get them to at least come to the front door and say, hey, is everything okay? Can we get you anything? Is there anything that you need? That is one person going to one house, talking to another person and having a human interaction that means a whole lot to people, especially during times of COVID. And that's not just during times of COVID. There are a lot of people facing isolation at the moment, whether it's people in seniors' homes, people who live on their own. It's important that we, as a people of faith, look out for the people who are slightly isolated. Even in our own youth groups, the people that kind of just stick to themselves because they're shy, a little bit reserved. Right there in our youth group, we can make a difference by going up to them and saying hello. I think the churches that I've liked the most, and this is my Pentecostal bias, are the Pentecostal churches, because they're the ones who have people at the front of the church who greet you, who say, welcome, we know you're a visitor, have a bar of chocolate. You're always trying to entice people into church, but at least they get to know my name. They're the ones who after church say, hey, look, do you want to grab a coffee or something? And I think those are really small but significant acts that we can do, whether it's at school and hanging out with someone and sharing your lunch with someone, or being part of the student movement who are standing up across the world against all of the things that we've been doing over the many years that we've been doing them against climate change. People want a fairer society. You and I want a society that's honest and fair. And I think we can do those small, significant human interactions. They're going to make people feel like they're cared about, that someone hears them and sees them. And I think that's on us as individuals to reach out. We can do it as a youth group. We can do it on the way home when we're on the bus or the train heading home from university or something. Why not talk to someone next to you? Just say, hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay? I'm part of St. Vinny de Paul's or the Lasallian youth group. But let people know that you're involved in things, because you never know, they might be looking for something to get involved with too. So it's the small things that we can do. And I live just outside. There's a supermarket about 200 meters from where we live. And when we went into lockdown, I kind of just hung around there and talked to people, because, there's a whole lot of panic buying going on. And people got really scared. And just the fact that their local councillor was there, just someone they could chat with, man, I'm more than happy to yarn with someone. And I'm quite happy now to buy the coffee. So those are the small things that can help us to understand that there's big issues in the world, but we can do the one-on-one thing that makes a difference in someone's life today. And I think when we can do that, then we make an impact bigger. Our impact is all the more bigger, but we've got to start where we are today, in our communities, in our families, amongst our friends, at school, and even at church. Because I know you're all thinking, yep, I know who the weirdo person is at church or at school that Efeso is referring to. Then I want to encourage you to reach out to that person and say, you know what, I want to shout you lunch coming up soon.
Man, if that was me, I would have got a lot of lunches after hearing that message.
Oh, true. Same.
So, Efeso, one of the things that is quite apparent in, at least for Australia, in terms of when we talk about poverty, there is different levels of poverty. We're not just talking about poverty of finances or financial means. In some of the schools that we have, there's a poverty of identity. There's also a poverty of connection. And I even heard from teachers directly, there's also a poverty of literacy. Things that we have taken for granted to be able to have levels of literacy that make us feel confident in wherever we go, to things, to even being able to catch a bus, things like that. So when we're talking about those different forms of poverty, do you have any thoughts on how to specifically address those different avenues, or?
Yeah, well, that's one of the hardest questions I've been asked in ages, and I do a whole lot of news stuff as well. I look, at the end of the day, for me, connection is the key to everything, and that might not answer the question specifically around poverty, but when we're connected, we're able to share, and a part of us is shared with someone else when we're connected to them, and that allows us to bring out or to the front who we are, what we believe, the things that are important to us. And so whether we're sitting down and having coffee with someone and talking sport, talking about, who's the cool person at school or what life's like at the moment, what it's doing is it's allowing part of who we are to come out in a conversation. I think a lot of the other poverty that we have is probably, related to connection, because we're not too good at getting to know people that well. I wonder if over the last few years, we've become a little bit isolated as a world. Everyone's cool on social media. Everyone stays up at night, and young people get really little sleep because the notifications are going off all the time on the phone. And I wonder sometimes if we've got more connection through our phones than we have through each other. One of the rules that we have at dinner table, and the one that I break all the time, it's really hard when you're a politician, but I'm not trying to excuse my behavior, is the phones are put away when we go to dinner or when I go to the bedroom. It's finding spaces where I'm not engaged with the phone and I can actually have a human conversation with somebody. And I know that's hard because, the notification goes off and someone's got the best TikTok coming out and you want to beat their TikTok, or you want to join them when they're singing and you want to harmonize to their song. I understand that that's what's on people's minds, but if we're going to connect with one another, then we've got to do it in a way where we're not distracted by things going on the phone or on our iPads, and actually talking to one another. And look, I'm reminded by my 8-year-old daughter all the time. She always says to me, "Dad, you have to put your phone down." And, I am her Samoan father. And you've got nerve talking to your dad like that. But the reality is, she's right. She's had a fun day at school. She wants to tell me about it. And here I am trying to finish off emails that need to get sent out. And so part of our rule is when I come into the house, the phone is put away on the fridge or somewhere where it's not going to be reached by anybody. And we disconnect from that world and reconnect with one another. And schools have a responsibility, I believe, to encourage young people to express their identity. And we're fortunate in Auckland, we've got lots of Pacific clubs, the Samoan, Tongan, Niuean group. And I don't know what the Australian situation is like, but I want to encourage schools everywhere to look deeply at what's the things that's going to make the kids feel like, part of me comes to school too, whether it's starting up a Samoan group, a Christian club, a prayer group, a debating group. We've got all the sports groups going on. It's important that every aspect of the student's life feels like they can come forward. So schools have a responsibility to do that. I know schools are busy. I get it too. My wife used to teach at a high school. But you do have time to find those spaces. So I think those kinds of things are really going to help with that level of poverty where people feel like they have to become like the norm in order to fit in. And I've already said I'm one of those people who loves chaos. I love difference. I meet with people all the time who in my mind, I think, gosh, you are so weird and crazy. But I'm really intrigued by them and I want to hear their ideas. And if we slow down enough to listen to somebody else, to acknowledge that their world and their upbringing was different from ours, and if they show us the same respect by being still and listening to our story when we share it, then everyone benefits. And I think that's one way that we can deal to some of that poverty that's happening at the moment.
That's awesome. I love the real examples there. First, it's being able to, even being reminded by your 8-year-old daughter to role model that behavior.
I know.
You're raising the right girl. You're raising them right.
Raising my heartbeat as well.
Oh, that's cool. So last question, Efeso, here you've dropped lots of different pearls of wisdom in this time that we've been together. What is one piece of encouragement you'd like to share for our listeners throughout the Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea district?
I think what The older I've got, I think I've got a little bit snappy as well. My patience is starting to run out. That's why I'm not working with youth anymore. When I was much younger, I had all the patience in the world, and I would pick people up at 2 a.m. and all that kind of stuff. I'm not the person to text because I turn my phone off. You won't be hearing from me. That's why you've got good youth workers like yourself who are really patient, and you, Philippe, and the team are going to be really patient with them. I just want to encourage young people to find what they really value, to reflect on the things that make them get excited about life. And when you know what's really exciting you, then chase those things and know that along the way you might make the odd mistake. You might trip over here and there, and people are going to be critical because suddenly you're getting all famous and they're not getting as many likes or hearts on TikTok as you are, or likes on Facebook. I want you to know that the things that you're passionate about, that excite you in the world, are going to be the things that carry you through life. That's what makes your heart beat. I know there's science to how the heart's supposed to beat and the blood going around in it, but I actually believe that our heartbeat is dependent on us really knowing and finding and holding on to the things we love and chasing those things. Now, which is why I put up this picture of my family. This is what gets me up every morning. This is the group of people who I carry into my world. And in my line of work, there's heaps of criticism. People are really critical with the things that I say and the things that I do. But I am doing everything I can so that my daughter, so that my wife understands that we're all out there fighting for a cause that's going to see society better for everybody. And so I just want people to know that it's worth it. What you're doing, what you believe in, the things that excite you, those things are worth pursuing. And, just like how my wife was worth pursuing. She is a beautiful woman. And I think it was really important for me. Firstly, I was pretending just to hang out, but really, I just wanted to get her number. And, that led to other things. And then she married me. I had to, force her hand a little bit and paid her family a lot of money to marry me. But we're married now and we've got 2 beautiful kids. But I want my girls to know that their dad is doing everything he can to prepare the world so that it's ready for them. It's ready for their excited, exuberant, happy, special, Samoan, Catholic-based faith approach to life, so that they don't need to have to go through the same things and hurdles that their parents went through. And I want them to see, their girls, remember, and I want them to see that their mum and dad were heroes in their worlds because they fought for them and they provided for them. And I know everyone's context and situation is different. Fia and I are blessed that we own an apartment. We both have jobs that pay us enough where there's food on our table every night. And I remind our girls when we pray to the Lord and thank Him for that food, that there are others who don't have that food. So let's not waste it. Let's not waste our opportunities. Let's give ourselves fully to life so that we can bless others, so that we can do something for other people as well. So, yeah, I want to encourage young people, go for it, man. Come to Auckland. If I'm still on council, come visit me, because I want them to see that everything we're doing is for a cause that's beyond us. And I actually think this is something that's key to our faith, that God doesn't just want me interested in me. Oh, what a boring life if all I ever did was do things for Efeso. I don't think Fia would have married me and my girls would be so disinterested in my life. But because we're doing it as a team, because we're in this together, and we know that this is like a call of God on our lives to make the world a place that is fair and equitable, and a place where people share. Mate, those are awesome values to have, and those are values that we're prepared to pursue. So that's our family doing it. In my job as the head of the home, the priest in the home is what the Bible says, then I've got to lead that. I've got to facilitate it. I've got to hear what they have to say. And if I'm listening to my wife and to my daughters, then I'm going to listen to other people and their ideas too. And I want to acknowledge that I get things wrong. I make mistakes too. That kind of happens in life. And so will everybody else. Will make mistakes along the way. Get up, keep going, and make sure you're fighting for a world that's just and fair, and acknowledges that God and faith has a really special part for us.
Thank you, Efeso, for your time and your willingness to share your experiences and wisdom to help our young people throughout our district to continue fighting the good fight wherever they stand. On behalf of the young Lasallians and, of course, all those who will be listening to this in the future, we wish you all the very best and ask for a blessing for your family to continue doing the work that you do, but with health, with strength, and with warmth in your heart. So, as we say among the Lasallians, we ask for St. John Baptist de La Salle to pray for us and to live God in our hearts forever.